Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone who is attending this product webinar. My name is Afa+Palu+9, and I am the Chief Scientist for Sanoa. If you are in this webinar and this is your very first time attending and you're not affiliated with Sanoa, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to you. And for the affiliates, we, as always, every month, we appreciate you being here. So before we started, can you show by raise your hand that you can hear me? All right. Is there anybody else? Just want to make sure that you can hear me. I don't want to go through the whole webinar and nobody is able to hear me. So I think it's at 7 o'clock right now here in Utah. I would like to start because we have a lot of things to get to and we'd like to end on time. So at 7 to 8. We'd like to thank you for being here, and we know that you and your family have a lot of things to do, and we appreciate you being here. And we hope that the things we're going to share with you tonight will be something that will be helpful to you in understanding the products, how the products work, and why the product is very important. So those are the kind of things that we want to accomplish in this webinar. And for those of you who have been on the monthly webinar with me, we thank you. And as always, at the end, if you have questions, it will be great if you can send me an email. So let us start. As always, this product webinar is for educational purposes only. So we hope to educate you and to share things with you. This is the third series of the Advance+Noni+Science. And as you know, Nuku+Hiva is a plan of traditional knowledge and scientific innovation. Now, as we go through this webinar and the month ahead, I have worked out something that perhaps the next month webinar will be a little bit different than what we're doing this month and the last few months. I like to divide the time like 20 minutes or so for Nuku+Hiva, 20 minutes for core care, and 20 minutes for SRQ. As I got a lot of questions from you affiliates and others that come in to me via email, and it seems like this will be a great strategy to move forward to in the next month. So that way we are talking about the products, and as new products come, then we have to start suffering in a way. So what we'd like to do today, we'd like to look at the molecular mechanisms of the ingredients and some of the compounds that are found in noni or in Nuku+Hiva. Okay? As you know, there are 9 ingredients for the product Nuku+Hiva. Now, I don't want you to think that we're going to be talking about very simple molecular mechanisms of why these ingredients and these compounds will make a big impact in your life, in your health, as we go through. It's always better to have preventative medicine rather than, of course, the other side. So prevention is always better, and therefore we like to look at these molecular mechanisms. Okay, you don't need to be afraid about those big words. So now I want you to know that growing up in a traditional healer's home, as my mother and my grandmother and so as those who went before them. You always see a lot of the people that come in for various purposes, and of course as a kid, and I have collected a lot of medicinal plants for various purposes, and noni was among the most. So, and interestingly, when you hear something about noni or other medicinal plants, traditional healers have their own claim. So, and the modern medicine and science, sometimes they don't agree on one another. But here are the claims that I'm familiar with that Tongan traditional healers made. Okay, number one, that noni was always good for those who suffer from what the Tongans call kahi. According to the Tongan system, traditional healing, there are about 26 types of kahi. Now, when the modern medicine came to Tonga, and everybody kind of see that the kahi is similar or same as what modern medicine call cancer. So in Tonga, a lot of the people switch over. Instead of calling that type of human conditions as kahi, they call them kansa, meaning cancer. And another one that they also claim is the toto ma'olunga, meaning high blood pressure. Also, one of the claims was looking at sugar or diabetes. One that is always associated with a lot of kids is called mamulu, meaning bruises, and kulokula, interestingly, kulokula meaning red. That's the Tongan word for red. And that's what they use for description of inflammation. And the next one is that's the Tongan name for gout, but the traditional Tongan name was called langai hokotangahui, meaning the ache of the joints. Okay, and then the last but not the least, traditional healers claim that when you take noni, it makes you strong. In Tonga, we call that sino malohi. Or in Western medicine, it has to do with the immune system. So the stronger your immune system, the more healthy you are. So those are, I want you to see these kind of traditional healers claim compared to the Western, okay, so that you have some idea of why noni was used for certain things. And though my ancestors did not know how these things work, we, in our day, understood how these things work. So that gives us more light, gives us more understanding of how these things work. So that's what we call mechanisms, okay? How part, okay? So in other words, my ancestors knew that these things work for certain things as traditional healers claim them to be. They did not know how it works, they just know it works. So we're fortunate enough that education, modernization, laboratory apparatus, and a lot of modern technology that has enlightened our minds and expand our understanding of why certain things work. So in application to noni, that's when we finally started to understand these kind of things. Okay, I remember early on in my career as a son of traditional healers, I always had to collect medicinal plants. So coming to the United States and going to school and learning science, that was one of the foremost things that I always loved to do, to find out why those things work. And when it comes to noni, it excites me because knowing what my mother and my grandmother knew, they explained certain things, but now I have the light of education shine very brightly that I understand how these things actually work. And as such, I have a deep respect for my mother and my grandmother and all of traditional healers and what they do. So high blood pressure, that is one of the things that I always see a lot of people that come to my home concerning these type of human conditions. Now, I think it's fair that we need to take a good look of how it's going from normal to high blood pressure and what kind of conditions that high blood pressure creates. Okay, because when we have high blood pressure, it's not just the high blood pressure. It also leads to other problems that we are going to face. So if we can control the high blood pressure, it also alleviates a lot of the other symptoms or conditions that we will face. So if you take a look at the middle of this, if you see my cursor moving around, it goes from angiotensinogen. That is the, it's kind of like that is very inactive, and there is an enzyme that acts upon it and activates it. Then it becomes angiotensin number 1, okay? And also another enzyme, angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE, converts that into angiotensin 2, okay? And from angiotensin 2, it leads to a lot of problems. Let's go from the left and work our way to the right, okay? If you look at the pancreas, there are a lot of problems that happen when you have high blood pressure. If you look at the adipose tissue, there are a lot of problems happen. Look at the skeletal muscle, lots of problems. Look at the liver, lots of problems. And if you look at the the kidneys, lots of problems. You look at the endothelial cells, there is a lot of problem. Look at the heart, there's a lot of problem, okay, in the heart cells. And the membrane is very important, but we'll touch on those. But I want to draw your attention to this, okay? As you see that being highlighted in red in circle, the angiotensin converting enzyme. I remember over, I would say 15, 16 years ago, when I first looked at this during my, in graduate school, I recognized, okay, these pathways are the pathways that have been designed based on research, based on evidences, and this leads to high blood pressure. And a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, they target what is called the ACE, okay? So if you have any pharmaceutical drugs that inhibit the ACE, it means that the angiotensin 2 will not be, or less of them, or will not be created, which means you won't have these kind of problems or lessen the impacts of these problems, okay? So knowing from my class on drugs mechanisms, it leads me to think about, I remember that day when I went home and I thought, I wonder if noni does have some impacts on this enzyme. And I like to know why and how and all of those kind of things. So doing the first research study on those, and come to find out that yes, noni does have an effect on the ACE or the angiotensin converting enzymes, okay? But it's always, from the in vitro research, is always a, what we call concentration dependent, okay? Which means in lay terms, the more I drink, the more inhibition, or the more that is going to help me relieve my high blood pressure. Now, I want you to remember that I have seen a lot of people who express that they have high blood pressure. And in Tonga, there are a lot of people who, when they found out they have something from the doctor, a lot of them are scared to go back, okay? So they'll come to traditional healing at that time. And when they explain that, you see some of the things in their eyes and things like that. So that gives me comfort to say, okay, maybe noni has more than just one mechanism. And that's exactly what I did. and also make arrangements for human clinical pilot study, which I'll touch on that in a few minutes. Okay, so there is the pathway right there. Okay, a very simple pathway, and the reason why we call it molecular pathway is because the molecules are involved. Okay, so you don't need to be afraid of those terminologies. But here's the pathway, and I want you to see something here. Okay, like what I said before, there's something similar to these things. If you look at pancreas, the ROS generation, meaning the reactive oxygen species. Okay, if you see all of those red boxes, also reactive oxygen species is raised. Okay, or rise in levels. Cardiac cells, the same thing. If you look at endothelial cells, same thing. Okay. And if you look at the kidney, same thing. So all of these problems, because of the free radicals. And in a few slides from now, we'll talk about the antioxidant, but that is one of the things why antioxidant is very important, okay? That they will help to reverse the increase, to decrease them, and therefore your conditions will be make lighter than what you suffer from, okay? So if you look at the next one, you look at the, remember now we're talking about high blood pressure, but look at the new boxes that I put on top. It shows something interesting because now blood pressure, it ties into insulin, okay? And of course diabetes. If you look at the adipose tissue, they're no longer sensitive to insulin, okay? And the uptake of the glucose is down, meaning a lot of the food that have been converted to sugar are all in your blood, okay, in the blood circulation. So therefore, your blood sugar is still high, okay? And if you look at skeletal muscle, okay, the insulin sensitivity is decreased tremendously, okay? Exercise is good. The more you move, the more you run or walk, whichever type of exercise, it actually activates what we call CLUT4 enzymes. Okay, there was an interesting study was done in Thailand, and that is the first study that I'm aware of, and there's a subsequent study was done someplace else, that noni actually activates CLUT4 enzymes, which is one of the mechanisms of how noni helps alleviate diabetes condition, as it shows here. Okay, so, and if you look at the liver also, the sensitivity to insulin, the rise and fall. Remember, the liver is very important. Okay, that's where we detoxify a lot of the toxicity that are in the body. So it's very important, but not only it become insensitive, it also the fibrosis level goes up in the liver, which is bad news, okay? So what I wanted to show you is that even though the pathway we're talking about is high blood pressure, it also leads to other conditions, okay? So quite frankly, high blood pressure, if it is not controlled, it will lead to diabetes, according to the pathway, okay? It's very important. So if you look at the cardiac extracellular matrix, okay, I want you to see those things. The MMP enzymes increases its level, okay. MMPs, these are matrix metalloproteinases enzymes. And what they do, they degrade the matrix, okay. Basically, they degrade all your collagens that are shown here, which is bad for the skin, bad for the heart, and everything else. Now, interestingly, not only that also shows a lot in aging, MMP activity, but also when you have high free radicals, it activates that too. And also it helps in promotion and um, of cancer to metastasize from one area where it was to a different area. So going from primary to secondary, okay? So those are a lot of the things that happen, all stretch from one molecular mechanism. So it's very important that we realize that if we don't control one thing, it leads to one or two or more. So now for traditional claims, what I have seen here, it says half a cup, that cup right there, half a coconut shell, full, and that's usually they drink. And they come back for the following day and drink those, okay? So that cup is probably about, I would say, 250 milliliters, close to 300, okay? I would give it a range of 250 to 350, around there, okay? Depending on the size of the coconut, of course. In terms of, with that kind of cup, you that's basically what they took for one day, okay? And as you can see, that is the fermented noni nectar, okay? So keep that in mind. As you know, that Nuku+Hiva is a plant of tradition and innovation. So the fermented noni nectar is mixed with the noni fruit puree, okay? So now, if you look at the science of it, like what I alluded to before, noni fruit juice has been shown to inhibit this enzyme that we call ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme, okay, which might explain, this is not the only mechanism, but this is one, we might explain some of the traditional claims, but also modern, for those who have drink noni or noni base, and those who drink Nuku+Hiva, as they send in a lot of their testimonials. Okay, that study was done, and then it was published as part of book chapters from Scientific Meaning. Now, what's interesting, though, here is another mechanisms. Okay, so the first mechanism was enzymes related, the ACE, and this is the receptors. Okay. If you think of receptors and the enzyme, is almost, if you live in a country where you have those big hydraulic dams that stuff the water in a way that they generate electricity, or make sure that they have water downstream or things like that. And in every dams, they always have two things on the side way high. It's called the spill gate. Okay. I would say that the big gate down, where a lot of the water comes out, that's more like your ACE enzymes. And even if you close those, the water level will rise, and then the water will come out on the spill gate, okay? So the spill gate is kind of like your angiotensin receptors, 1 and 2, okay? I hope I make sense. So a lot of times the ACE inhibitor do not help. And one of the reasons why is because your receptors are very active. Okay, so noni was also shown by us in our study that also binds to the receptor 1, okay, AD1 and AD2. But the IC50 was much lower in AD1, the receptor number 1, okay? The IC50 just means that the amount is here, okay? The amount that it takes to inhibit the enzymes AD1 and AD2, okay? 50% of the activity. So inhibition concentration 50, that's what it means. So noni is very sensitive to AD1 receptor compared to AD2. In fact, when we look at the noni concentrate, it shows the same, the noni juice itself, fermented noni nectar, and when you go to a noni concentrate, it still shows that the activity favors the AT1 receptor. Okay, it's 1.97% or 1.97 milligram. Okay, compared to 2.29 milligram. So noni is actually inhibit the ACE, so an activity in there. The inhibition was about 80s to 90s. Okay, these are in vitro work, meaning they were done on a bench work. Okay, and the concentrate of the noni is still more active against the receptor number 1 compared to receptor number 2. Okay, so that is another mechanism that shows in vitro, meaning on benchtop, that perhaps noni also act on that. Now, there is something interesting here, because after looking at those two, a few years after, it dawned on me that there is one more enzyme that are also involved in this molecular pathway, if you call them, okay? Going from the top, the yellow, go all the way down, and here is your receptors here, okay? I want you to take a look at this. It's called the non-ACE, okay? But it's a different enzyme called kinase. Okay, and noni was interestingly an inhibitor of the enzyme kinase, concentration dependent. Okay, meaning that the more drink noni, the more the inhibition of that enzyme in vitro or benchtop. So now you have 3 different mechanisms, or perhaps that's how noni works. But there's no claim to help those who have high blood pressure, and perhaps for those who have been taking noni, and talk about their testimonials. Okay, so in order to find out, okay, here are the mechanisms, how do they actually work in humans? That is something that we look into. And there was a clinical pilot study that was done looking at 10 subjects at the time. 7 of them were males and 3 were females. Okay, and we wanted to take a look at this group because this is work that was done in conjunction with the Brigham Young University in Hawaii, my alma mater. That is where I done my undergraduate. And we look into this. We wanted to get some people from the community who is medically diagnosed to have high blood pressure, but do not take medication. Now, that is a condition that is a lot that happen in Polynesia, and a lot worse when you go to outer islands. Okay, but this is in Hawaii. For some reason, they decided not to take, or a lot of them said that, well, we had that ACE inhibitors have a lot of side effects, therefore we did not want to take them. And when you ask them, so what are you going to do with your condition? Well, we don't know. We're just gonna, exercise and eat well. And interestingly, a lot of them, they say, well, that was about a year or 2 ago, and my condition is still getting worse. So a lot of those were recruited, and if you look at the pretest number of high blood pressure, okay, so you add all of them together, and the number is 144.83. And then they go through the month taking 2 ounces in the morning, 2 ounces in the evening. And after the month, this is what you look into as a group. It's 132/76. Just drinking the noni-based supplement. Okay, 4 ounces a day, as I alluded to earlier, 2 ounces in the morning and 2 ounces in the evening before the meals. So that's, now we have gone through the mechanisms, and then we have seen this in humans. Okay, so I want you to, I'm going to take a few examples from the ingredients in Nuku+Hiva. Okay, if you look at blackcurrant, that is a very interesting fruit, because that fruit has high vitamin C content, but also has a lot of vitamins and minerals, and also have a lot of what we call anthocyanins, okay, and things like that. But let's take a look at what happened. Interestingly, they did look at the effect of bloodcurrent and blood pressure. Okay, and it shows that bloodcurrent, okay, blood pressure in these individuals. Remember, I alluded to bloodcurrent has a lot of polyphenols, okay, or anthocyanins. You can Google that and look at the structures, but it shows that have a very pronounced effect on those that were hypertensive, but very less in those that are normal. Okay, so for those who are normal high blood pressure, when you take blood current, they're very rich in polyphenols. It does not, it just maintain if you are normal. If you are high blood pressure, then it lowers it. Okay. Now, if you are familiar with the way that we do webinars, at the bottom, you always have the citation, and you know, for your own purposes, if you want to go look at the study and read about it and things like that. Okay, so after the webinars, they are always at the back office. So let me take a moment here for all of those looking for information. If you don't see them on the website, I will strongly encourage you to go to the back office. Okay, I know that all of you affiliates have access to it. There are a lot of webinars that was done by Jake Smith, a lot of them done by me, a lot was done by me and David Castella, and some were done by David Castella alone. Okay, I hope you guys had an opportunity to meet David Castella and Jake Smith. That's our team. I love those two guys, and we work synergistically with one another. Okay, so now if you look at the red raspberry, interesting small little fruit, but boy, it pack a lot of the what we call phytocompounds or compounds. Phyto means plants. Okay. Interesting study, as you see the citation here. The extracts that they take, and of course the people that the hypertension, and you look at these kind of things, and okay, the nitric oxide is activated, the vascular endothelial dysfunction was improved because of its antioxidation, okay, or just simply antioxidant, okay. Again, there is a characteristic that you find that they're rich in polyphenols, okay, which are very good for cardiovascular health. Now, this is an interesting study in itself, because not only it lowers, but it also gives us some idea of how it does, the mechanisms, if you will. Okay, so not only because of its antioxidant, but also increases the nitric oxide level. Okay, and then also the endothelial cells are affected or become abnormal when you have high blood pressure. So when those things are improved, of course, the endothelial cells health is improved. I think lately in the last, I'd say 5 years, there are a lot more focused studies now on the health of the endothelial cells, okay? Because they do contribute to the whole overall health and other human conditions, okay? A lot more lately. With men, I think it's associated with a lot of sexual dysfunctions. That is one of the reasons why a lot of research have been done towards that particular pathway. Okay. Now, there are a lot of questions that people have that they always. It seems like I get a lot more questions on this part. The antioxidant part of the noni. Okay. Now, whenever you see the ORAC score, the ORAC score were meant to inform the researcher or those looking at a medicinal plant or a fruit or a pharmaceutical drug to see if it has any antioxidant potential. Okay, so I want you to know that whenever you see antioxidation or antioxidant, there are at least 7, okay, types of free radicals. Okay, here they list 8. So you have superoxide, okay, or O2 with a little minus in the top, the hydrogen peroxide, the hydroxyl radical, the OH with the negative, and there's a singlet oxygen, okay, as is shown here, hydroperoxyl radical, okay. Now, you kind of remind me of the free radicals. So I'm sorry, but the more you see radical here, radical there, what type of radicals, kind of remind me of those, of that movie. But you also have the lipid peroxide radical, okay, nitric oxide radical, and you have the peroxynitrate. That's another radical. You recognize that they have the minus in each of them, okay? These free radicals are very active. They're very, very active, okay? And I want you to, in order to get a good understanding of this, it's always helpful in my mind to picture the Pac-Man games. I'm not sure how many of you used to play the Pac-Man games, but you see the little thing that they're after is like 5 or however many that they after one. And whenever that thing eat a fruit, it change. It have the ability to eat all of those that come after them. And when that power is off, then the other 4 or 5 things are coming after that. Okay, so that's the kind of behavior the free radicals are. Now, here's an interesting thing that I want to point out. Because of their negative behavior, they attack things that are positive. Okay, so a lot of things that are positive, you can find a lot of those in your DNAs, among other things, and proteins. Okay, so this is why you need a strong antioxidant like noni in order to neutralize the effects of these free radicals. Okay, so they're very dangerous to have them around. Now, please do not misunderstood me, because we need certain levels of free radicals because they're strong antimicrobial. But because of the way we are, our diet and no exercise, and we don't eat right, and all of those, so there are a lot of factors that associate with those. The free radicals levels become higher than what the cells usually can normally control. As such, we need the extra help. And noni is one in particular. The SRQ is another one, and core care. Okay, so these are very important. And of course, the free radicals goes down, and the antioxidant levels goes up in terms of noni. Now, and if you remember a few slides ago, we were looking at the effects of high blood pressure. It also contributes to the diabetic condition. Okay, so let's take a look at the high blood pressure, at the high glucose. Okay, now for diabetes in Tonga, it's quite interesting. I'm not sure. I remember there are a lot of people that say if there's a lot of mosquitoes that come in and bite some people, it's because they have a lot of sugar in there. That seems like to be one of the old traditional things that traditional healers used to say. Okay, but the treatment was always, you know, you drink a cup today and come back tomorrow for another cup, and all those kind of things. So now, let's take a look at the consequences of the sugar imbalance. So does our body need certain amount of sugar? Yes. But the body do not need the excess. Okay, of course the excess comes when we overfeed ourselves. Number one, we drink a lot of sugar content drinks or soft drinks or whatever. Okay, and we eat things that we shouldn't eat, or eat too much of those. So all of those things contribute to the total. Okay, if you look at it, here are some of the effects that you expect to see. If you look at the liver, okay, imbalances of the AMPK, it leads to the blockage of proper glucose metabolism. Interestingly, AMPK is one of kind of like a switch that also helps with energy. Okay, so the activator of AMPK leads to energy, but now here in the liver, when your sugar is imbalanced, it leads to something else, and it prevents other activities from doing their normal thing. Okay, look at the muscles; it imbalance a lot of those. It leads to the glucose metabolism, then the impairment. Okay, as I alluded to earlier, exercise is good because in the skeletal muscles, the GLUT4 enzymes transporters, they transport the sugar from your blood circulating into the cells to be stored or burned, okay, for energy. When you have those imbalance, then there are a lot more sugar in the blood circulation, and the GLUT4 enzymes are overwhelmed and they're not working that effectively. Okay, of course, everybody knows that if you're diabetic, you have nerves problem and eyes. Okay, so the blood sugar become interesting. An enzyme called aldose reductase is responsible for converting the normal sugar that we eat, that we get from the food that we eat, into what we call the sugar alcohol. And then sugar alcohol leads to other things which attack the eyes. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why aldose reductase drugs are very important. Interestingly, Noni is also that I found that and discovered that is an aldose reductase inhibitor. Now, if you let's cross products now, okay, if you don't mind me doing it, but as I'm thinking about it, the Salacia reticulata in SRQ and almost all of the ingredients there, they're very strong aldose reductase inhibitors, among other enzymes that are involved. Okay, if you look at it, the brain is also become problems with the balance, the heart, the kidney, and the intestine. So a lot of those things become imbalanced. This is why we should be eating a good diet and exercise, and take your Nuku+Hiva. They will help you in your SRQ and core care. Now, I think I alluded to this earlier on, and so this is something very important. Is in, like what I said, SRQ and Nuku+Hiva, the Noni and Salacia have been shown to inhibit this enzyme, and there are about 3 or more other enzymes that are involved in that process, okay, of converting sugar, glucose, into sorbitol, the sugar alcohol, which are very dangerous. Okay. Interestingly, in some of the works that we have done previously, Noni was also shown to inhibit an enzyme called TBP4, which are also involved in blood sugar production. Okay, so in terms of diabetes, it's very active. Okay, the TBP4 enzyme is very active. Therefore, you need an inhibitor to inhibit that enzyme. Therefore, it will alleviate some of the problems they have with. Now, another thing that we also worked on, which is very interesting, the non-food juice concentrates was shown to inhibit these enzymes called BDE, or phosphodiesterase enzymes. There are about 11 of those, if I remember them correctly. And Noni is very active on all of them, but some of them are more active than the others. Okay. Interestingly, the BDE 3, 4, and 5, that those are some of the enzymes where the work that we done previously were focused on. But it's interestingly that we look at the concentrate, and I remember that the BDE 5 Um, Also, this is why it's interesting, because if these PDE5 enzymes um, also help to control blood sugar, but the interesting part, it also work effectively for men who have sexual dysfunctions. Okay, so those who take the concentrate, they will recognize that right off the bat. So those are some great work that was done previously. The noni fruit, as I said before, that it was a very interesting work that was done, as noted here. Um, this is guys from a lot of studies, but this was the first that was done from Thailand. And they discovered that noni activates the GLUT4 enzymes. Okay, so the best way to think about it, in my own opinion, GLUT4 is a lot of them in the skeletal muscles, and if you exercise a lot, GLUT4 is activated. Okay, and if you drink your noni at the same time, okay, they work synergistically, which is why you gotta have your Nuku+Hiva part of your exercise routine, because they will help you tremendously. Okay, we also look at another enzyme which also contribute as part of the benefits to controlling blood sugar in diabetic type 2 patients. Okay, it's called carbonic anhydrase. Interestingly, this is the same enzyme that some supplements or pharmaceutical drugs that target this enzyme, because it helps with the elevation. For those who fly, you take your carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, then you don't feel like that you are disoriented in things like that. Okay. Now, how much time? Okay, I would like to finish on time, but let me briefly just go through these. Okay. The noni fruit extract was shown to stimulate the PPAR gamma and glucose uptake, okay, via stimulation of AMPK. Now, as I said before, noni is an activator of AMPK. That's why, if for some of you, when you drink your Nuku+Hiva, that's the first thing that you recognize, you have more energy. Or when you take your SRQ or your core care, you recognize that your energy level goes up. Looking at Nuku+Hiva, SRQ, and core care, you see that a lot of them, all the ingredients in there, majority of the ingredients, they do contribute to the activations of AMPK. Okay. Now, I share with you this study because it's interesting. That was done on mice, and these mice, of course, have been induced to be diabetic, and they wanted to see if the noni fruit juice and humulin have any effect on the blood sugar, and if they do, what kind of effects do they have? And what they found significantly lowers the fasting blood sugar levels in rats that were induced to be diabetic. Okay, when you combine the two, instead of taking one, noni or humulin, when you combine noni and humulin, then your blood sugar dropped tremendously. Now, my mother-in-law was diabetic, type 2, and there were a lot of times that she forget to take her shots of humulin. And when she went to the doctor and looked at the blood sugar level was still normal. And so my wife and I recognized, because she's scared to use the needles. So my wife's the one who always administered that, and she always remind my wife. But for some reason, there were some days she forgot. And so we had to put it on a calendar to make sure that everybody keep it. But when she miss out on a lot of things, she still take the noni, and noni helps her to control the high blood sugar level that she had. Now, if you look at Concord grapes in Nuku+Hiva, you recognize that the consumption of the Concord grape juice for 8 weeks in a human study was shown to decrease it by 2 milligrams per deciliter. Okay, so then the blood glucose become homeostasis, meaning it balances itself and stay normal. Okay, at that range. So it's very important. Coconut water was shown to be very helpful to those who have high blood pressure, and also, interestingly, helpful with lowering of the as an antioxidant. One, remember I alluded to one of those free radicals, the lipid peroxidation, okay, and upregulate the antioxidant. So this is very important. You see the combination of these ingredients in Nuku+Hiva were not done out of just putting them together. We have done a lot of review of scientific studies done by others, of course, and we decided to do this not just from the traditional, but also from scientific. Maki, interestingly, you took an extract of maki, the very concentrate. It was a study done, and they call it telphenol, and it significantly lowered the blood glucose and the lipid profile, okay, in those that were pre-diabetics for 3 months. So this is an important study of the maki. As you know, the maki fruit were used by the Mapuche Indians in the Patagonia region in Chile. Now, if you look at the maki fruit, if you want to just look at the anthocyanins, okay, here is a picture of what anthocyanins looks like. And if you look at them, the 75 of them is what we call telephenidins, and 25 cyanidins, okay? So I just wanted to show you what they have, and for good reasons, okay? If you look at the anthocyanins in the blackcurrant that we talked about previously, it's almost level, okay? 54.7% of those were telephenidin and 44.8 were cyanidin. And here are the main 4 listed here, okay? So why are we bother talking about them? Here are some of the benefits of the polyphenols and things like that, okay? They're very helpful for boosting the cognition level. It shows to lower bad cholesterol and raise the good cholesterol. It shows to help fight obesity, help support the healthy inflammation, improve vision, okay, help with a healthy heart, to support a healthy heart, and of course support a liver health, okay. These are only some of them, 8, but that's the reason why I thought, well, I got to put this in to make sure we understand at least some of them, because in the next few months we're going to understand a whole lot more and share with you, okay? So that now I want to look at the oxidative stress, the antioxidant part. This is something very important, okay? I think we have seen this before. The function of the antioxidant is to give an electron so that the free radicals become neutralized and they're no longer become a radical, okay, to attack things that are positively charged, such as proteins, cell membranes, okay, in some part of the cell membranes, and your DNA. Those are very important, okay. So there was no things that the only things that a lot of traditional healers do. When I was on my mission, they said, well, just drink a cup, it will help you, okay, every day. Now, looking at it from the scientific point of view, remember the free radicals, there were 8 of them. Here is one of them. Okay, here's something interesting about noni in this study, okay. Gupta and Sai, they look at it, not only it decreases the level of lipid peroxidation, okay. Think about lipid peroxidation as kind of like somebody poking holes in these lipid bilayers. That is your cell membranes, among other things, okay. Those are are very important, that you must decrease those kind of free radicals because they will attack the cell membrane. Okay, but here's something interesting that we have learned after studying noni for over 20-something years. That noni always increase the natural antioxidant enzymes of the body, and it shows here that noni elevate an enzyme that we call catalase. Okay, that is part of the repertoire, if you will, of the noni antioxidant mechanisms. Okay, so it lowers the free radicals, but raise, okay, the good enzymes that are involved in the antioxidant in the body. Okay, so that's the lesson that we like to take from this. Noni decreases free radicals, but increases the body's own antioxidant system. That is why noni has become very effective. Okay, interesting study that was done by Romali. They were looking at the ripe and the unripe extract of the noni fruit, and they wanted to see, are they very active as scavengers of nitric oxide? That's another free radical, okay, and hydroxy radicals. So now you have two free radicals in there, and it shows that noni is very, very effective in I would say reducing the numbers and the levels of these free radicals. Okay, so noni decreases different types of free radicals. Interestingly, noni was shown to decrease in different studies, perhaps in next month or so, all of the 8 free radicals. Okay, now something about CoaCare, because I love the product, and I wanted to touch base on it. Okay, before we are over. Here are of course, the ingredients of CoaCare. Cod oil, that's where you get your omega-3s, okay? Perhaps next month there's an exciting research study that would like to invite David Castella to talk about it. And sea buckthorn oil, I want to let you know that Jake Smith and I are working on changing some of the things in the labels. There are actually more omegas in sea buckthorn than are listed. I want you to know that, okay? Now, when you think of sea buckthorn, a lot of people say, well, sea buckthorn is well known for omega-7. I want you to know these. These are facts, okay? Studies done by others, a lot. Sea buckthorn has omega-3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. That is the truth. But the main omegas, the predominant amount of omegas is omega-7. Okay, if you look at the cranberry seed oil, we usually just think of it that, hey, cranberry, omega-9. In reality, they're omega-3, 6, and 9. Okay, predominant one is omega-9. If you look at the pomegranate, there's omega-3, 5, 6, and 9. Of course, we always think of omega-5. That's the most predominant. But there is omega-3, 5, 6, and 9. And if you look at the mangosteen fruit, there is omega-3 and 6. The noni fruit itself, not the noni seed, it has 3, 6, 7, and 9. Okay. We have done the analysis and are working through some other things. As you can tell, there are a lot more omega-3s and other things in it, okay? Another thing, some people always ask, did you add the omega-6? No, we don't add omega-6. These come as part of its natural occurrence in the sea buckthorn, the cranberry, the pomegranate, the mangosteen fruit, and the noni fruit, okay? So, okay. Briefly, omega-3 fatty acids, they inhibit the MMP9 enzymes. And MMP9 enzymes, they increase their activity the older we get. That's the reason why our skin become different when we get older compared to 20s and 30s, as you've seen here. Okay, this is another reason why it's very important to take CoaCare. Perhaps a lot of you always said, well, when I take CoaCare, my skin seems to be lighter and smoother. Okay? that's one of the reasons. Interesting study was done on Salacia, and they were looking at, they're looking at the, let me just briefly say that, at the immune system, and they wanted to know what does Salacia do with the immune system, and also what does Salacia do with the the microbiota, the good gut organisms. Okay, do they support healthy gut or not? Interestingly, as you can see, 32 healthy males. Okay, the immune were low, but look at the age group. What they found was something very interesting, because they saw that Salacia itself increases the CD4, okay, the native T cell proliferation. The immunological age was lowered by Salacia reticulata by about 2 years. Translation, your immune system is younger and stronger by about 2 years than your actual age. This is a very good study. Okay. Now, I think our time is up. I want to share a special promotion and let you know, for those of you who are here. Okay. Here is the special promotion. There is an Advance pack. Okay. I talked with Brett Rees, and this is something very, very important. Okay. It's know that these things are very important. Because the pack number one, right now, beginning right now, okay, as you listen to me, so the regular price of 2 bottles of Nuku+Hiva, this is 1 liter each, is $109. Okay, now right now at this moment is $75 for 2 and 50 CV. Okay. So I want you to, those of you who are in attendance today, I want you to know that. Now, there is another great offer, though, that I really like. Okay, here is the other offer, the Adventure Pack 2. You get 4 bottles of Nuku+Hiva. These are 1 liter each, and you get 1 bottle of Core Care and 1 bottle of SRQ. All of those, the regular price of all of those is $320. Right now, at this very moment, you can get all 4 of them together with 1 SRQ and 1 Core Care for a good low price of $195. That is a saving of $125, and of course 160 CV. Okay, so this offer is good until Thursday, September 28th at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. Okay, so I want you to know that that is a good promotional offer that was offered by Brett Rees, and we'd like to thank him and also his team. Okay, so hopefully you have gained a better understanding of some of your answers to Sanoa's product. Again, I would like for you to direct all your questions to me at afa@sanoa.com. Okay, we want you to know that we love and appreciate you for what you do, and please share your products, share your stories, and share your Sanoa. Okay, if you have any questions, please send me an email. And for those of you who are here, the offer is really great. I hope that you get now. So the pack 1, Adventure Pack 1, if you are here for the first time and you're not an affiliate, you're welcome to try that, but I'll go for the pack number 2. That saves me a lot of money and I get a lot of products. Okay. Again, we thank you and we appreciate your support and we love you. Have a good evening.